Hey, how's it going? And today I thought it'd be fun just to explore a preset Hypervoxel in LightWave just to see what we might be able to come up with. So this is something I was just playing around with. It might be some kind of nebula or something like that. But let's just go ahead and clear the scene and we'll start from scratch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into render properties, and we have to enable use legacy volumetrics. That's really the first thing. If we don't do that, we won't see anything. And then we're going to go to FX Tools, we're going to add an emitter, and we're just going to make something that looks like maybe that would be shooting out from a thruster or something like that. And one thing I like about LightWave is how intuitive the particle system really is. It's actually, if we hit play right now, we can just see the particles, but they're not going anywhere. So all we have to do is just give them some velocity. So I don't know, we can go 20, and if you don't put any gravity on them, they'll just be flying straight out the back, and they don't have much. So right away there you've got your now to make it spread out, all we have to do is just add some explosion. And what's cool about LightWave is that you can actually do it in real time. So for my purposes, that's all we need to do just to create kind of a thruster effect. And then the other thing we can do is if we jump ahead and we're on the emitter, we can just go to rotation and on the pitch and just turn it 90 degrees, and then we'll have it going sideways. And just like that with two settings, and I can rotate my camera here, we've got a kind of thruster effect just like that. Two settings and we're done with our emitter. So let me just zoom in here a little bit, and I'd like it to go the other direction, so I'll just turn this way, and you see my camera over there. I'm actually going to go forward here, or there we go, so we see it like that. There we go. That's kind of the effect I'm going for. Then what I'll do is I'll just stop this, and I can even bump the frames up to 500 here real fast, and then we'll match our camera perspective, and then we're all set up. So now what we got to do is add the hypervoxels. So to do that, we're just going to go into backdrop here. We're going to disable our backdrop, and then we're going to go ahead and go to legacy volumetrics, hypervoxels, and just double click into that. There's our emitter. We go activate, and we're all set to start playing around with some key settings in here just to see what we can come up with real quick. So I match my perspective, and then let's go into VPR. And this is what we see right away. We can kind of see. Now this is coming in on the surface. There's three different types of objects we can use. We hit F8. It gives us presets, and let's go into one that looks kind of cool right off the gate. And it's one of these fireballs. And we'll kind of explore a couple settings in here to see what we can get to. The good news is we see some coloring. Not on all effects do we see any coloring, which is very interesting to me. So like, let's go F8 again real quick here. Oops, I guess I maybe clicked over here, F8. Let's go and look at one of these other ones here. Is it strange? Yeah. So let's click neon furball. And let's see if it does it. We can see anything. Notice how even if we change to surface, we change to volume, we change to sprite, we don't see anything. I'm not exactly clear why that is, if anybody knows the answer for that. But that's what I'm saying, not all the effects you can see from this. If I figure this out, I'll definitely make a video about it. So anyway, there's that. But let's just go back to where we were with the fireball, because we can see that one. I want to say most of these effects we can see, but then we don't see necessarily what we expect to see with the default settings. So here we are, back to this. So this is just all coming out in spheres, and if I hit play, this doesn't look clearly like anything. And so just in experimenting with all these different settings, I've noticed if we go to sprite, because I guess of the level of transparency, it starts looking more like this actual picture. But again, it's all coming out in spheres and stuff. And so if we go and look at all these tabs, the ones that are lit blue means there's an effect already applied to them. So that's interesting, right? Now there's a turbulence texture apparently applied, but we don't really see it. Here I don't know why we don't see that. and we can see that there's an amplitude applied to it, but again, we don't see anything here, so that's curious. But let's just click on this and explore a couple things about this setting. Now, I believe if we increase the slices, we can start seeing it starts doing some interesting things. So that actually gives us more of a smoke effect, and so we might want to hold our slices at 3. So that's one to explore, is sprites and slices. That sounds like a pizza place. Anyway, we're going to go in here, and we notice we got 2 keyframes on here, and this was interesting to me. This was kind of an insight I had with one of these, playing around with this. Local density, if you think about the parameter that is, right, it's the density of this sphere, so the effect is being applied. If you think of a sphere, it's being applied outwardly based on, from I guess maybe the inside out of the sphere, and that's why the effect seems contained to all of the spheres. So how can we get this effect to go on acting on the sphere, right, to acting on the collective? Well, we could go by, we have other parameters we can go by, and one would be tempting, might be x2 particle distance, but that doesn't quite seem to do it. What if we went to relative particle age? Now, with this effect only, right? So look what it's doing with the coloring. See the coloring on that? How we've got, it's white up here and it's dark up here. So this is maybe more of the effect, but do we want it really to go from this color? What would the color transition really be? Would it be from white to orange? I don't know. I'm trying to imagine. Maybe the hot part is up here, but you can imagine this maybe being the hot color. So we could play around with these colors, is what I'm trying to say. Whatever you would imagine the front of the fireball to be, and then the end colors here. You know, so we could just play around with these colors. I don't know. We could try inverting the keys and see, does that look a little more better? So it's hotter up here, and the white, I guess you could associate white with being hotter, but maybe we don't want even any color at all. Maybe we just want dark. So what we could do is here, I believe what we could do is decrease the alpha there and just not have any really color there. And then here we could extend this out here. So just by playing with these parameters, you can start getting something like, maybe we want a more transition area in here, so we could spread these keys out and get more of the transition of the color. And we could change the color. Maybe this isn't that intense of a color, although it's looking pretty fiery right there. So you can see by just playing around with this one parameter how it starts changing things. So, but let's go with relative particle age versus local density, and I think that gives us more of what we're looking for. And again, we could just play with these parameters until you get them to where you like them. And like with the color itself, these are actually really handy controls, the hue, saturation, and value, because this allows us to control the color, and we can see it changing there. And then the saturation, of course, we can get, maybe we want a darker orange, so we'd increase the saturation. The values, the kind of the luminosity, the brightness kind of it, and the hue and the color, and we can very easily come up with probably a darker orange color there. That's really dark, you know. So maybe that's too much, you know. And maybe that needs to actually be, the value on that needs to be even brighter. So it's just something to play around with those parameters. So we're still stuck now. We're looking more like something here. It's going on like a fireball, but it's very ballish. And I've done a tutorial about this before, is how do we get rid of this ball sphere effect? And one thing that I know we can do is simply increase our particle size. That's one thing we can do, is the bigger we make these particles, the less we can see that they're balls and they start merging into each other. So that's another key setting there. And if we go pretty big, it really starts merging into something. And the other setting, of course, is we can try adjusting the size variation a little bit. So there's that effect. And then the stretch direction is always a good one. And if we go with the velocity, that really starts looking like something, you see? And we can always play it and see what we're getting. So we're getting a lot of something that looks much more like this by just having adjusted a few key settings. So, and there's much further you can experiment with. I would suggest looking at the ones where they're already blue here, because that could be a nice guidepost.